Greetings to one and all. I hope I'm audible and visible. A very warm welcome to the second edition of TEDxILS Law, an independently organized TED event hosted at ILS Law College. My name is Amol Gupta, and I, along with my co-organizer Navya Maheshwari, are going to be your host for these 2 days. ILS Law College was established in 1924 and is one of the leading law colleges in India. The college fosters the value of nation building with utmost reverence and is the alma mater for many prominent lawmakers such as chief justices, chief ministers of states, and political stalwarts, and the likes. We have all assembled here on a virtual meet coming from different time zones. Why might you ask? The answer is simple. Each of us has one thing in common, the eagerness to grow, and that is precisely what TED strives for. A conference born in the year of 1984 has now become a viral video phenomenon and a worldwide community of passionate people. And to make sure that the ideas worth spreading are dug at the local level, the TEDx initiative was launched. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held annually, casting an immense impact on millions of people. Let us get to know what TEDx actually is through a video.
Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
It is an idea which provokes a person to bring a change, which is all the more relevant in the current world. It is rightly said that one common mistake is to think that one reality is the reality. You must always be prepared to leave one reality for a greater one. The theme of TEDxILS Law 2022, an alternate universe, aims to cover that. Changes are happening not only at a global level, but also at an individual level, in different facets of our life. Most often met with great reluctance, we must realize that change is the first step towards growth, and should therefore welcome it with a positive mindset. The timeline shifts with each new awakened human. As a result, an alternate universe is created. Now, the question is, does that alternate universe have the potential to become a reality? We are sure you will nod your head with a strong yes after the event. We are honored to have with us great pioneers from different fields who share the vision of TEDx and are determined to empower the population. Their novel ideas and perspectives will help us broaden our horizons. We will hope to make this event memorable for everyone who's watching it, and that at the end of the event, each of us gains something out of these 2 days. Now, I would like to hand over the virtual mic to my co-organizer Navya to introduce the first speaker of today. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Social prejudice and discrimination against people who are differently abled based on the belief that typical abilities are superior in nature is a problem that is very contemporary in our society. Differently abled people are skilled in their own ways and do not require fixing. The misconceptions and generalizations made by people should be addressed, and for this we have our first speaker. Our first speaker is a professor and the principal of ILS Law College, Dr. Sanjay Jain, with a teaching experience of over 20 years in the fields of comparative and constitutionalism, feminist jurisprudence, and international economic law. Most importantly, Dr. Jain has helped to create an atmosphere of inclusivity in our college. And his advocacy of disability rights won him the National Award for Employees from President APJ Abdul Kalam himself on the occasion of the World Disability Day in 2004. Today, he will talk about ableism, a social issue that permeates our society but is often overlooked, and will share his views on how differently abled people live in an alternate reality compared to the lives of others. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Sanjay Jain.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Navya, for a warm introduction. Uh, it is indeed a privilege to be the part of the galaxy of speakers in the second edition of the TEDx event of ILS Law College. Uh, I'm very happy that you have chosen this very important topic of parallel universe and parallel reality, and you want the college want the audience to take into account uh, the vulnerable groups and their issues, a topic which is often ignored and overlooked. Now, uh, can we really say that there is a parallel universe, or there should be a parallel universe? And I remember a very interesting quote from Rabindranath Tagore when he says, "Everything comes to us that belongs to us if we create capacity to receive it." So what is important, the context is that if we are able to eliminate the barriers, if we are able to if we are able to combat the inhibitions in our mindsets about those who are different from us, then probably there will not be any necessity to create parallel universe. But looked at from other angle, how far is it correct to entertain the assumption that a thing or a particular transaction should be performed only in a particular manner? For example, how far is it appropriate to assume that you can read only if you have eyesight, you can walk only if you have legs, you can speak only if you have speech ability? Are we trying to are we trying to maintain fixed assumptions? Are we trying to entertain fixed notions about the actions? Are we thereby ignoring, not accounting for different things, innovations? That is the issue. Now, when I look at the design of the entire world, be it physical design, be it political design, be it economic design, my understanding is that this world has not been built taking into account or keeping in mind disabled people, and therefore it is inherently ableist. And because it is inherently ableist, we entertain a very monolithic approach towards doing things. And therefore, we have the so-called objectivity. Okay, if you cannot see, then you cannot read. What is ableism? Before I respond to the assumption, it is important to very briefly allude to the meaning of ableism. Ableism is the discrimination of and social prejudice against people with disabilities based on the belief that typical abilities are superior. So when we uh, provide or when we grant ascendancy to certain abilities over others, when we assume that certain abilities are better than others, then ableism creeps in. At its heart, ableism is rooted in the assumption that disabled people require fixing and uh, uh, and defines people based on their disability, just as casteism defined people based on their caste and sexism defined people based on their sex. So it's a dogma. Basically, the main function of ableism is to undermine the abilities of people with disabilities and to create a very negative picture of theirs and perpetuate the myth that they are lesser human beings. Now, question arises: are people with disabilities really lesser human beings? A very important question which needs to be answered is, if on other grounds, if on other if certain other grounds are recognized as constitutionally irrelevant, legally irrelevant, why disability is often not considered as constitutionally and legally irrelevant? Why even today most of the constitutions around the world do not have provisions to either prohibit or combat discrimination on the ground of disability? The simple and the plain answer to this question is constitutional ableism. Most of the constitutions still recognize disability as a natural difference, and still the belief is entertained by most of the lawmakers that it is okay to distinguish between disabled and non-disabled because the former are naturally different from the latter. I think a very interesting point which I want to allude here is made by Justice Chandrachud. Justice Chandrachud, in a lecture, he very aptly remarked that exclusion against the disabled may or may not be deliberate, but inclusion must always be. So he emphasized, he combated this notion of difference, and he emphasized that disabled people are also, they are also people with dignity. They also are the bearers with dignity. Another important point which he made is worth highlighting. He stated that the nature has a unique method compensating what it deprives. So suppose I am deprived of my eyesight. Nature can definitely compensate by giving me sensation in my finger. So I cannot read by my eye, but I can read by my finger. I can read Braille. Similarly, if nature has deprived my ability to walk, it is possible for me to use wheelchair. If the nature has deprived my ability to speak, it is possible for me to use sign language, to use lip reading. In other words, it is very much possible for me or for all those vulnerable people who are unnecessarily perceived as lesser human beings to conceive a parallel universe, to conceive a universe which would provide us the same amount of respect and the dignity as entertained by the non-disabled people. Now, why ableism persists? What are the main causes of ableism? So, if I were to look at constitutional ableism, most of the constitutions still recognize physical and mental disability as one of the grounds of ineligibility to hold public offices, and Indian Constitution is no exception. When you look at discursive ableism, look at the kind of language we use. Love is blind, right? How love can be blind? I fail to understand. Don't do it blindly. Don't give lame excuse. So what we are doing, we are trying to trivialize the disability by using metaphors, as if disability is a marker of irrationality. This is discursive ableism. Economic ableism. You assume without any objective barometer, without any objective criteria, that people with disability are ineligible to be productive units of society, as if they don't have the potency to be employees, they don't have the potency to be employers, they don't have potency to be entrepreneur. And this assumption again is without any basis. This assumption is clearly and purely driven by ableism. Then political ableism, everything about us without us. What happens? Everything about us without us. Everything without disability will be done by non-disabled without caring for their experiences. Take two recent examples. A recent judgment of the Supreme Court, wherein court has passed an order, directing the Film and Television Institute of India to provide admission to people with color blindness. Court very categorically stated that art should not be conformist. But when you dig the process, when you find out the process of the adjudication, the committee whose opinion court largely cited while coming to this conclusion, the committee does not reflect the experiences of the people with color blindness. So are you really trying to embrace the people with color blindness, or are you trying to achieve uniformity in the guise of equality? Equality is not uniformity. Equality is respect for difference. Equality is equanimity, so that you strike a delicate balance between both equality and diversity. Another example, in a very interesting judgment, a very disappointing judgment and an interesting judgment, Surendra Mohan's case, court held that because a blind person lacks sight, he cannot read and he cannot write. Again, on what basis you are entertaining the assumption, on what basis certain judges are holding this belief that blind people, because of their inability to see, they cannot read or they cannot write? Simply because they have not bothered to consult blind people. They have not bothered to instill their reasoning with the experiences of the blind people. Therefore, this is a very dangerous political ableism, because you are trying to do everything about us without us, whereas the mantra after the enactment of the United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, everything about us, everything about us should be done with us. Nothing about us without us. That is the mantra. Nothing about us without us. Now, the next important aspect is how to nurture a difference, how to ensure that people with disability, their status is elevated, they are recognized as the equal members of society. I think if I were to give some solutions, firstly, we have to raise our consciousness. And consciousness has to be risen not only by the disabled people, but also of the non-disabled people. We have to understand that disability and non-disability are merely the two ends of the continuum. All of us are some way or the other disabled. Not being English also is a disability. Not being able to drive is also a disability. But then these disabilities, being disabilities common to majority, we overlook these disabilities. But on the other hand, not being able to see is perceived as a very natural disability, because ability to see is something which is not lacked by majority. It is only lacked by a few people, a very small percentage of the society. But substantively speaking, what is the difference between not being able to see and not being able to speak English? Both are inhibitions, but societally under the influence of ableism, because not being able to see is an inability which is not a typical inability. So typical inabilities are not perceived as disabilities, whereas those inabilities which are atypical, they are perceived as disabilities. Therefore, we have to engage in consciousness raising and ensure that this so-called distinction between typical inabilities and atypical inabilities is done away with, and uh, we start entertaining the assumption that okay, everybody is disabled. Okay, some disabilities are visible, others are invisible. Now, to conclude, therefore, I would like to argue that all of us, mostly the majority enjoy a lot of privileges, maybe unintentionally and unwittingly. The privileges are enjoyed by majority, but the majority must be mindful of the fact that it is enjoying all these privileges at the cost of minorities, and particularly all the able-bodied people are entertaining privileges at the cost of disabled people. Look at the design of roads, look at the design of vehicles, look at the design of toilets. For example, when you construct your house, do you provide any leeway for entry of wheelchair? Do you provide leeway for uh, the sign language system if somebody turns speech disabled sooner or later in your family? So my point is, apart from consciousness raising, we have to also ensure that we try to uh, mitigate the disproportionate distribution of privileges. We try to undo the hegemony of law tilted in favor of the able-bodied. In short, I would like to say that if you want to nurture intimacy, if you want to nurture equanimity, then start celebrating difference. Don't try to undermine somebody because he's different. Try to celebrate with him his difference or her difference. Thank you very much.
No, more than one. Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll start. Yeah, okay. Now we'll start with the Q&A session for the speaker.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for this enlightening talk. And I'm sure that all. Just a moment, please. I'm sorry. Okay, so I am sure that all of our listeners are now really, they have something to really think about the way that they live and how they can make it more inclusive. So, taking a few questions from the chat box. Firstly, what are the everyday challenges faced by the differently abled that others might take for granted? The aim of this question is to paint a picture of what it is to live like a person with a disability and make the audience understand the challenges that they face daily.
Okay, that's a very good question. As while concluding, I stated that most of the able-bodied, they enjoy a lot of privileges. For example, roads. Are roads accessible for wheelchair users? Are roads accessible for blind people? Similarly, toilets, basic need in the colleges. How many toilets are wheelchair accessible? Similarly, another very simple example, you have to go to one class, you have to navigate from one class to the other when you are in the college. So suppose I have to go from hall number 1 to hall number 4, and I'm a blind person. How do I ensure that I reach the correct room? Are there braille strips on the doors of the classrooms? Now, all of these things are very trivial, very doable, but still they are not done in most of the places because it is assumed that disabled people will not be there in the colleges. We are not anticipative or reactive. And when, therefore, disabled people all of a sudden, when they they take admissions in the colleges, or all of a sudden when a person with disability appear on the road, then Instead of being empathic with him or her, we start showing sympathy, and we start complaining. Okay, uh, why this person is putting his or her life in danger, or why he has not inquired before coming to college whether the college is accessible or not. So the onus is transferred on the people with disability without realizing that by default most of the designs are ableist. So answer is not blaming the disabled, or answer is not trivializing their needs. Answer is combating ableism.
Thank you, sir. That certainly leaves us with a lot of things to think about. And we, as a society, need to really things approach organizations to be more inclusive. And with that, we would like to think about how recently ableism and the talk of disabled people having to bear the onus of their disability in this world is gaining traction, and and more people are willing to listen. So do you think there have been any changes, whether positive, whether negative, in the way that people are approaching the subject?
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed, I'm extremely optimist, and I'm a born optimist rather, and I believe that there have been a lot of changes normatively and socially. Normatively, we have refined our laws. We have put in place stringent rules and regulations to ensure that principles of accessibility and reasonable accommodation, which are pivotal to the empowerment of PWDs, are implemented and enforced. And socially, I think my presence in the college as a principal is the biggest example of transformation. Who would have imagined 15 years, 20 years ago that a person with disability can head as a important and one of the most front-ranking college like ILS Law College. Moreover, with government becoming conscious of promoting the value of full participation, there are a number of people with disabilities who are holding very high positions in government. They are now, many of the people with disabilities are in banks. They are part of the administration, etc. So it would not be correct to say that everything has gone wrong. Yes, the wheels of the change are slow, but then when you consider the entire default being ableist, when you consider the fact that world did not even conceive disabled during its construction, during its design, I think uh, things are not that bad.
So your answer definitely leaves us feeling optimistic as well. And with that, we conclude your talk and the question answer session. Thank you so much for your time with us. And now I'm going to hand over the mic to my to the co-organizer, Navya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, on behalf of TEDxILS Law, we would like to extend a heartfelt gratitude to you for taking out time and sharing your inspirational story with us and using our platform to sensitize the people about ableism. I'm sure that the audience has loved hearing your talk and have gathered understanding and direction from your talk. Now, Amol would introduce the second speaker of the day.
Hello, everyone, again. Everyone at one point or other in their life faces issues relating to mental health, relationships, stress, addictions, professional performance, and other problems. After a point, we need help to sort them out and move ahead in life. The environment around us affects our personality and also our lives in general, which in turn helps us to make our decisions or sometimes makes our decisions for us. Professional help is something that could help a person understand their problems and also help overcome them. So we have our next speaker, Dr. Sapna Sharma. Dr. Sapna Sharma is an international counselor, a life coach, a motivational speaker, and a counseling skills trainer, also a published author. She's the author of two books, Spiritual Parenting and For the Love of Me. Both novels have gained widespread praise and acclaim around the country. She has received the coveted Shiromani Sampudeshak or GEM Counselor Award and the successful Women in Management Award. Also, the Counselor of the Decade Award for her work in pioneering and popularizing counseling in Central India. Aside from that, she is a popular columnist for a number of newspapers and periodicals. Among her many social services, Dr. Sapna Sharma has traveled the entire state of Punjab to inspire the youth to live a positive life free of drugs. Here is ma'am's video.
Hello, and let's hope that we're all going to have a very pleasant evening. I grew up with a lot of personality issues, the biggest one of them being low self-esteem. There were others like low confidence, non-channelized dreams, lack of focus, even unloved and confused at times. When I grew up, I thought I was much smarter and I had a lot more understanding than my parents now, so I could bring up my children to feel better about themselves. The shock came when they too counted my mistakes in parenting them, and the long-term effects, the negative effects it has had on them, and the struggles they had to take up to strengthen themselves. I was confused. But I was born to loving parents, and so were my children. We have had a fairly comfortable environment at home, in the school, at college, in the society. I was a professional counselor, and yet things didn't seem to change. But I know I would have done at least a little better if my parents knew a few things. A little more better if my teachers had not said a few things and maybe said a few things to give me the boost I needed to see myself as a potential individual. Do I blame them? No. How can I? I have committed mistakes as a parent, and my children are the living proof of that. I do not blame them because I know they did the best they knew. When I look around at the problems of the world facing regularly, that terrorism, violence, rape, theft, religious hatred, suicide, homicide, and more, I'm usually drawn towards the issues from the perspective of the perpetrator rather than the victim. Were they born this way? How many of them were actually taught to grow up and be the way they were? And were they actually happy to do what they did? Oftentimes, when terrorists are caught and questioned, they have a reason to believe that they have a right to kill because of some injustice being done to them. There are people who provoke such individuals, but there are people too these are all fired by desires of vengeance, desire of power, desire of money. Where did that come from? Were they born with it? The child that they were was as innocent and contented as they were any other child. Somehow, when we talk of justice or right or wrong, we do not wish to look into the past for that person. I guess it complicates the matter. But how long are we going to ignore the young gunners who shoot out at the schoolmates and then blame the government for free availability of weapons? Weapons are available for all in certain countries, but everyone does not want to go down and shoot others. Can we try to understand why this one person is the way he is? It seems all the prisons, the judiciary across the world does keep psychologists around, and then great thesis works are published. But what actions are being taken in the society at large to ensure the number of such incidences and troubled people reduces? In fact, when we look around, we see the numbers on increase at alarming rate. Then what is the use of all the study and the research being conducted? All we do is end up increasing the budget of the armed forces. In addition, the progressive new world now believes that children need to be only given good academic education. That seems to be the ultimate aim for not only the governments but also the educators, the parents, everyone. With every changing policy, new subjects are added to the curriculum, new tests, new scholarship, new competitive exams, and thus new academic activities, new pressures. Teachers are overwhelmed with handling all the teaching and administrative responsibilities. And parents are overoccupied trying to provide money for this increasing needs of the child, the educational budgets. The emotional and existential needs of humans have never been as neglected as today. There are millions of social media posts that parents forward to others regularly. But when it comes to their own child, their entire focus seems to be on sending him to one expensive institute after another. Be it for schooling, higher studies, or for the tuitions he needs to take up to cope up with everything. All we do is keep increasing the budget allocated to some blind academic institute, academic education. Everyone agrees that mental, emotional, social, and even spiritual health is of utmost importance. But when it comes to implementation, well, here's a story for you. When my daughter was in class 9 and the state board had made it compulsory for schools to include personality development in the curriculum, the schools printed a textbook and added on a paper to the exams called personality development. Again, I do not blame them. They are also doing it for the first time. Maybe as they were taught. They have also been brought up in a certain way that perhaps never spoke of emotional health and its importance. They are experimenting like the rest of the world, but the sad truth is the entire world is experimenting with the most valuable commodity any nation could have, the younger generation. I have tried over the years to bring about change at my level. As a counselor and a trainer, I have been invited to great number of educational institutes to address parents and teachers from the age of the toddlers to the college goers. You should know most of them do not pay well, but I do go because I believe this is where the real work needs to be done. I put my heart and soul into bringing them small, doable activities, systems to be put into practice in the classroom and at home. I read and research and try to give them something that could bypass all their objections, of I don't have time, or the monetary budgets, or the school doesn't have enough money, etc. I know these activities and these systems work because I've tried them. But unfortunately, there has almost never been a follow-up. Whenever I would ask the principals about implementation of the learnings, all I would get is an awkward smile. Our teachers are burdened, or it is so difficult to get qualified teachers now. We do not want to force them into anything. I was once training a batch of university teachers for their refresher course. It was a huge hall and my session was after the lunch break. I saw a few teachers snoozing at the back with the lights off. When I asked some of the front benchers about it, I was told we take turns. Those who want to sleep after the lunch would usually sit in the front, and then, we change the places.
Good evening, ma'am.
These are the teachers who are seen complaining of the bad attitude of the students. But again, I do not blame them. The organizers are aware, the deans, principals are aware. But again, all we do is maybe increase the school and tuition fees and the salaries. Where is our money going? Let us consider one more example. We often complain of the bad traffic on Indian roads. Commuters are blamed and fined for not obeying the traffic rules. But has anyone stopped you to think, when did anyone teach the actual road and driving rules to anyone in this country? I do not remember. Try to think how you or your relatives got their driving license. How can we blame the commuters for blocking the left turn at the signal, or for stopping on a zebra crossing, or for that matter the auto rickshaw driver who stops right in the middle of the road if he sees a potential customer? Where is the training? The training to live well, the training to thrive, the training to grow, to be happy, the training to be safe. All we do is increase the budget allocated to install the traffic cameras and the penalty that is slapped on erring citizens. I'm often thinking of an alternate world where the lawmakers are actually interested in running a happy nation with contented, motivated, driven, considerate, compassionate, and happy citizens. That definitely cannot be achieved by increasing the military budget and increasing the salaries. I believe of a world where the government allots the biggest chunk of their budget to training and retraining of teachers and parents. Hear me out. Why? These are the two entities, the teachers and parents, that affect the mental, emotional, social, spiritual grooming of every innocent soul that enters into this world and becomes the next generation. For this, we will basically have to accept a few facts. Number one, all parents are experimental child handlers. They need regular guidance to handle themselves, the stresses of life, and the young ones that totally depend upon them. 2, most teachers are not in the profession by choice and a desire to build young mind. They are normal human beings trying to earn a livelihood and have no reason to have all the understanding of the human psychology. 3, if young minds are molded with love, care, compassion, patience, and knowledge, the future generations would be the one motivated by love, care, compassion, patience, and knowledge. And 4th, a generation that is motivated by compassion and knowledge is incapable of harming any other living being. This is my alternate world. But, it's not an impossible dream. I have been working on one person at a time as a counselor. My experience and that of several like me reiterates the fact that every human being needs to feel loved, admired, appreciated, needed, and above all worthy. Small words said here and there, small actions can make or break a valuable resource human being. But while running through this world and facing the challenges, each of us is so overwhelmed that hardly anyone is aware of the words and actions we lay out so casually, minute by minute, day after day. If only someone would keep us under training and coaching. If only we can be corrected early on in our damaging effect on the younger generation. If only our children have some place to go get healed in case the adults around them are not handling them well. If only I can hear a voice that says, you choose your path responsibly and do not have to live a life of fear of the others. You don't need to control the other just to please your own low self-esteem. Come, let's work to improve your self-esteem. Hey, you've been looking stressed lately. It might affect your children. Come, let us help you with your stress. Your children are turning to teenage. They would need to be handled in a certain way. We will train you soon. And there, your child has a little strong personality. You will need help to deal with her without getting disturbed. We are with you till you need us. Your child is in a relationship, she does not know how to handle it, and you have to guide her. We will be here to coach you on how to do that without creating a negativity in the relationship. Imagine those kind of words around me, someone watching me. What do you think will be the effect of this kind of changed parenting? What if someone is there to tell the teachers, Madam, your class has students with different academic abilities. You will need more inclusive ways to teach them and to deal with them. We'll coach you on that. Sir, you need to be careful with that language that you use. You may feel that they are not listening, but they are tender. Every word leaves a mark on them. Come with us into this training before you take your next class. Can you imagine a world where parents and teachers are guided continuously? You know, this dream is so vivid. I can almost see happy faces around. Of course, there would be exceptions. We are human beings, not robots. But the majority population of the future will be saved from the stress, anger, ignorance, self-esteem issues, misunderstandings, etc. of the parents and teachers. Can you see with me how this will bring up more and more children and future adults who are calm, focused, loving, compassionate, helping, and motivated to live a better life? I want you to see this dream with me. Who knows, we might actually have governments that would someday want to rule a happy state with a happy future generation. Thank you so much. I can't hear you if I'm supposed to.
Yeah, ma'am. We're just starting with your question and answer section. And we please take over.
Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful talk. We shall proceed to the Q&A session if you have no issues.
Yes, Anvi. Let's go
Okay,
ahead.
so the first question is, haven't the teachers and parents themselves, who are under tremendous pressure from the society, lost their credibility to guide the young minds to be happy?
I think it's being harsh. It's been harsh saying that they have lost their credibility. We need to understand ultimately we are all the human beings and we are coming up from the same system. Children are not born with manuals, how they are to be treated and how they are to be handled. So for every parent, every child is a first time personality. They try to do the best possible they can. And while they are bringing up the children, they still have the struggles of their own lives. So it's not that they have lost their credibility. Everyone is trying to do their best, even teachers. But again, they are also human beings. They have been trained for certain things. They have not been trained for everything.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
So another question that was put was, what are the steps that can actually be taken to live in the reality that you talked about, where majority of the people are compassionate and understanding?
See, it's all depends upon how people are brought up. What happens is when the entire world is focusing on one thing for children, that is education, that is formal education, and secondly is the material gains. And so when these two things are focused, unfortunately, the most important characteristic are lost in the focus. The parents are all the time either yelling at the children or putting pressure on them. No one is teaching anyone how to be happy. No one is teaching anyone to introspect, to even think about myself. Uh, I am not encouraged to understand who I am. What do I like? How is the world affecting me? How am I getting affected by everything around me? I'm not even allowed to think that as a child, and I'm just interpreting, randomly things. So if someone is pointing out my mistake repeatedly, I'll start feeling that no one likes me, and that's when I start losing compassion for others also. I mean, just I'm giving you the smallest example. Then there are so many children who are going through physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse as they're growing up. So if children in the normal family end up with so many psychological issues, as you and I and everyone else knows that, can we imagine what is happening to those who are going through abuse, or even those who are being brought up in situations where they don't have adequate of essentials? So they are all, everyone is suffering because of the way they are brought up. Everyone. I feel that if the government, all the governments together decide to invest good amount of money into training of parents and teachers. I'm saying good amount of money, because if you want good trainers to train them also, they need to be paid. Everyone has to ultimately get paid. It's not charity work. So good amount of money is invested in training of parents and teachers. If those kinds of trainings are made mandatory, if they are called for repeated what I would say is analysis of how they are doing. If in corporate world we have something called as 360 degrees feedback. 360-degree feedback is not just the HR gives you the feedback. You get the feedback from your juniors, from your seniors, from your colleagues. So if the children are made to give feedback about the parents, and then they are guided accordingly, the students are allowed to give feedback about the teachers. Because I have, as a counselor, I come across so many cases where students have been unknowingly said things by teachers like, you're stupid, you will never be able to do anything, and it's affected them like lifelong. So these things, only if the students and the children are allowed to speak about their parents and their teachers, then only we'll come to know what the real issues are. And so a 360 degrees feedback system, and good investment in good trainers, repeated analysis and retrainings. Yep, I think that will help a lot. It doesn't help 100%, but it should help a lot.
Okay, we have a few questions. So one of the questions is, hate is being actively taught to children by their own parents instead of compassion. How can an outsider fight this and change the child's vision?
So that is why I'm saying that we don't have to work on the children, we have to work on the parents. That is why this whole utopian concept. Everyone is wanting to change the youngsters, but the youngsters are constantly being affected by their environment. Whether it's the media, whether it's the parents, the family, the educational institutes, they are. That is why the work needs to be done at that level.
Okay, one more question. I think the person is asking, how do I know if my child's problems are serious? Like,
I think simplest what we can do today is we can establish a good non-threatening, non-judgmental communication system with our children. Like what I always suggest is at least once a week, every one parent should take one child out, and at the same time another parent should take another child out, and then exchange in the next time. So that gives a free time for the child to express, not being affected by the presence of other sibling or other parent. And if this communication system is maintained, then the children would be seriously talking about what happens to them once they start feeling that they are not judged. And anyway, if you feel that there is a problem and you're not very sure about it, it's always better to take help of a counselor who's a third person altogether, uh, who is also trained to judge the child, or rather than judging, I would say, is to understand the child or any person, whether he's faking the issues or if there's a real problem.
okay, I think we have one last question. So, do you think that the words said by parents or teachers in any setting have a lasting impact on children?
Oh,
If
yes.
yes, how huge of an impact that is?
That impact, the intensity of the impact depends upon the personality of the child, but it does affect. Then again, some children react to that impact, some children learn to internalize it and not react. Some, very few, eventually with their maturity also try to work on the issues, while some carry the hurt for a very very long time. So it is totally depends upon the personality of a child. So one parent treating two children equally does not mean that both children will grow up in the same way again, because they are different personalities.
Okay, I think we have one more question. Just a sec. Okay, so stress management, is that a reality in an alternate universe? How does that work? We talk about stress management in general.
I think stress does not have to be managed. We need to manage ourselves. We need to learn to manage our thoughts, our interpretations, our emotions. We need to understand ourselves better. Stress is basically a feeling of not being in control. The stress is there when we feel, there's a situation which I am not adequate to handle. So if I am able to work on myself, to understand myself, my strengths, my weaknesses, my support system, and what are the and how I my thinking pattern, if I can work on myself, it is more of a self management than stress management.
Okay, ma'am. I think here we conclude the Q&A session. Thank you so much for being here today with us. I'll now pass the virtual mic to the organizers of the event.
Thank you, Anvi.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for attending our event. We are very delighted to have you, and I'm pretty sure that the audience learned something, and they had they have received some ideas about what to do about what changes are to be made in order to bring out a successful environment amongst us. Thank you
I,
so much, ma'am.
I hope so too. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank
Thank you.
you. Okay, everyone. Now we'll begin with our first interlude. So the beauty of the flute is in its simplicity and its resemblance to the human voice. It always sounds clear. It sounds alone. And to express this beautiful art, we have one of the ILS Law College students, Ayush Ramachandran, with us, who plays the flute majestically. Please welcome him.
Good evening, everyone. I am Ayush Ramachandran, and I'll be playing a combination of different flute pieces. I hope you enjoy them. Thank you.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. Uh, we have another video from one of the ILS Law College students, Ved. We have also put his Instagram channel on our YouTube chat. Please give us a few minutes to cue his video, and then we can proceed.
रहा हुआ क्या, बातों में बातें तेरी, रातें सौगातें तेरी, क्यों तेरा सब ये हो गया, हुआ क्या। मैं कहीं भी जाता हूँ तुमसे ही मिल जाता हूँ, तुमसे ही शोर में खामोशी है, थोड़ी सी बेहोशी है, तुमसे ही ना है पाना, ना खोना ही है, तेरा ना होना, जाने क्यों खोना ही है।
Hello, guys. We'll take a short break of 10 minutes. We'll resume streaming at 6:17. Thank you so much. Please be with us on the event, on the live stream. If you have any questions, if you have anything else you wanted to ask the previous speakers, please put it in the chat box and we'll convey the questions as well as the answers to you. Thank you so much. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Hello, guys. Thank you for your patience. Uh, we'll start again with the event, and let us just resume our event with a recapitulation of what a TED Talk is, what are TED Talks in general. We'll play the video and then we'll resume with our next speaker. Thank you so much.
Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Welcome back, guys. We hope you are enjoying the talks. Our third and the last speaker for the day is Mr. Aditya Manubirwala. Aditya Manubirwala is one of the youngest Indians to depose before a parliamentary committee and was a special advisor to the spokesman to the President of Afghanistan. He has also worked with Justice Vineet Saran and was the youngest advisory board member of the Asian African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He has published articles in 9 countries, including India, USA, UK, Belgium, Pakistan, Nepal, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Thailand. He is now a successful advocate practicing at the Supreme Court of India. He will talk about how methods of ADR will help us move into the new India. He will share his insights on the need for the implementation of an alternate universe where the judiciary and dispute resolution go hand in hand to reduce the burden of pending cases. Please let's welcome Aditya Manubirwala.
What if I told you that there exists another universe, an alternate universe, a universe you weren't even aware of, a universe filled with infinite possibilities, endless permutation and combinations, a universe where there exists a perfect utopia, a universe where there is a better way of doing things, a universe where no struggle is undertaken without a definite positive outcome, a universe where no dispute is left unresolved. And if we talk from the perspective of us lawyers, a universe where nobody is stuck in an endless and perpetual cycle of litigation. Can such a universe exist? In my opinion, it does exist. I was called today to speak on the theme an alternate universe from the perspective of alternate dispute resolution or ADR. But today, as I stand before you all, I say, why should we move into this Naya India with a mere aspiration or hope? When we say an alternate universe, we are essentially talking of a utopia, an ideal, a dream difficult to achieve, similar to statements made by politicians or beauty pageant holders of the world they desire to have, but which they deep down know is not possible to achieve. However, when I speak to you all today about an alternate universe, I stand here with a definite roadmap about making this so-called alternate universe into a reality. Before I speak about this alternate universe that we intend to make into a reality, let me draw before you all a picture of the problems that the Indian judiciary is saddled with. The Indian judiciary is in crisis, and there is no better way of saying this. I remember having a discussion with a Supreme Court judge who happened to be from Uttar Pradesh, whose parent High Court was Allahabad High Court. The judge told me that as a judge of Allahabad High Court, the High Court had set a norm that the subordinate judiciary should not have more than 300 cases pending before them at one point. It sounds easy. 300 cases is a good number, and keeping that number is a good figure. It sounded like a good ideal to have, a good target to have. But then that judge met a subordinate judiciary judge, the Chief Judicial Magistrate of Kanpur. That Chief Judicial Magistrate from Kanpur told the Supreme Court judge that there were not 300 cases pending before him, which were the target set by the High Court, but 30,000 cases pending before him alone. Similarly, the Allahabad High Court had again ambitiously set a target that a sessions judge should not have more than 75 session trials pending at a single point of time. A sessions judge from Bulandshahr informed that particular judge I am talking about that there were 1600 sessions trial alone pending in his court, leave alone the whole sessions court of Bulandshahr. From these figures, it is evident that there is a staggering load on the Indian judiciary. If a man can carry 100 kgs weight and an elephant is placed on his head, what will happen? I don't think we need any scientists to answer this question. He will certainly collapse, and that is what is happening to the Indian judiciary, unfortunately. We must realize that there are about 33 million cases pending in the Indian courts today. 33 million is 3.3 crore cases. That is if there is no fresh case filed today. So with every fresh case, the backlog increases. And with 33 million cases alone, it is going to take about 360 years to clear the current backlog. The edifice of our country's democracy lies somewhere in speedy justice delivery. The reason that people don't take law in their own hands is that they know that there is a judiciary, a robust judiciary in place to help them achieve their rights-based justice. So let's understand the gravity of the situation that we are currently in. So, and it need not be said, it is to be understood that some radical steps have to be taken, and policy makers, I hope, are listening to me. Backlog of cases and case disposal is the single biggest threat facing not only the Indian judiciary but the Indian democratic setup. It would be useful to study the actions taken in the USA at this juncture, because the US, which was a nascent democracy 200 years ago, faced similar issues that we are facing now. The issues that we face now are essentially issues any vibrant democracy in the initial years of its existence faces. Let's realize one thing. India is a young country. It's been 70-75 years since we achieved independence. India is a baby if you compare in a democratic setup with countries like the US or the UK. The US authorities, when they faced similar issues, took radical action by creating the system of ADR that we are discussing today. They broke it down into arbitration, mediation and conciliation. Today, barely 7% of the cases filed in US courts are actually decided by US courts. Every US court, howsoever big or small, is directly attached with ADR centers. And this was a movement which started in India but is still to achieve its maximum potential. We must realize one thing, that ADR is not an enemy of the lawyers. Lawyers have a fear psychosis deep down within that with ADR kicking off, what will happen to our rosy roti? What will happen to our income? What will happen to the income we generate through litigation and disputes? But that is not the case. ADR is also very lucrative, and that is what I want to tell all of you, because you all are the youth of this country and you all are the young members of the bar. In the US Supreme Court, 5,000 to 6,000 cases are filed, but not more than 150 of them are admitted. In US, of the 9 Supreme Court judges that there are, if 4 of them admit by way of a vote a certain case, only then the case is even bothered to be heard by the US Supreme Court, otherwise it is dismissed without hearing. In US, the last appellate court is ordinarily regarded as the state Supreme Court, the parallel of which for us is the High Court. The US Supreme Court only takes up an exceptional kind of cases involving national importance or any other serious legal issue where public interest is involved or where grave irreparable damage is done. Otherwise, even if the US Supreme Court feels that the state Supreme Court was incorrect, they never interfere because there has to be some finality to litigation. I believe that the need has come for the Indian Supreme Court to adopt a similar approach because the Constitution, as we understand, never envisaged for the Indian Supreme Court to be a court of appeal. Special leave petitions is a word you must have heard, by way of which the Supreme Court decides to admit a particular case at Supreme Court. The word as it goes, special leave petition, is under special circumstances. The ordinary procedure envisaged was for the High Court to give a certificate of leave to appeal for a matter to be heard by the Supreme Court. We have forgotten this system. This provision of the Constitution is rendered useless, and what was a special circumstance has become an ordinary circumstance. So either we restrict the number of cases that we hear in the Indian Supreme Court, or we recategorize special leave petition as an ordinary leave petition, because that is what it has effectively become. Moving forward, the legendary Mr. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes of the US Supreme Court once said, "A litigant not having access to speedy, quick and effective justice is a litigant who is sneering in the flames of withering injustice." ADR is undoubtedly a great beacon of light towards resolving the snags that exist in the justice delivery system plaguing our nation. ADR provides quick, speedy and effective justice. ADR is a process for resolving disputes, disagreements between transacting parties by discussing an amiable solution. ADR's main idea is that it enlists the help of a third party to resolve disputes, and one of the main reasons that parties may favor ADR over adversarial litigation is that unlike confrontational litigation, ADR's processes are frequently collaborative and allow the parties to comprehend each other's positions. In fact, about 50% of the members of the American Bar Association are lawyers who are also mediators, and these lawyers come mediators are usually earning more than those who are lawyers alone. So coming back to my earlier point, we the lawyers, that is we the the young members of the bar, need not fear ADR. We do not need to think that this will affect our livelihood in any manner. Moreover, furthermore, arbitration these days have become more sought after mechanisms for resolving disputes of high commercial value. There is no reason why arbitration cannot be employed for resolving disputes of lower commercial value. So one thing is very clear, in this alternate universe of litigations getting resolved quickly, of there being lesser burden on the courts of our country, ADR is the way forward. So we need to now figure out the contours of what make ADR successful and what make this so-called alternate universe into a reality. The COVID-19 pandemic necessitated systematic changes in the judicial system. An inevitable change that the justice delivery systems all across the world embraced is integration of technology. Due to this, justice is now no longer associated with a particular place, but rather justice is now a service that can be provided at the convenience of a party. In India, even prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, a few tribunals had started employing online dispute resolution. The most prominent of that being the National Green Tribunal, where admission hearings had begun to be heard online even prior to the pandemic. In fact, in the UK, in UAE, in Canada, most hearings happen online. Physical hearing is a rarity. So, building this forward, I emphasize on the need of ODR. ODR is online dispute resolution. ODR is often simplistically understood to mean EADR, or ADR that is enabled through technology. However, its potential benefits extend far beyond its genesis, namely area. ODR can help not only just in dispute resolution but also in dispute containment, a quintessential pillar in this alternate universe that we are bringing into a reality. Dispute avoidance, promotion of general legal health of the country are also hallmarks of ODR. ODR has already been successfully integrated into several foreign jurisdictions, and India is no exception. India should be no exception. ODR can help reduce the burden of the court and effectively resolve these categories of cases that are very time consuming or which lead to crowding of the courts. So for example, during the pandemic, admission hearings were all immediately made online. Subsequently, regular hearings were also made online. Even now, many courts, especially the NCLTs, the National Company Law Tribunals, are still functioning online, and there is a reason for it. ODR reduces expenses, ODR reduces paperwork, ODR streamlines system, and this is an essential pillar going forward into our alternate universe. But ODR cannot be rolled out and scaled up in India without a supportive ecosystem. The courts and the governments are trying their best. The e-courts mission in India is successfully trying painstakingly to make ODR into a norm. ODR is also being linked through the e-Lok Adalat systems, which is being ushered in under this government's tenure. The longer term agenda of formulating an action plan for ODR in the context of ease of access to justice, ease of living, ease of doing business, and helping justice delivery be efficient, affordable and effective is pivotal moving forward. I am hopeful that this will be an important first step for an active and world-leading role that India can play in a technology-augmented dispute resolution option. Dan Koal once said that the future will be a better tomorrow, and ADR and ODR are the future of the legal system and are the future of this alternate universe, which is essential for the survival of the Indian legal system and for the Indian legal system to flourish. In India, the judiciary has been at the forefront of reform. The e-courts mission mode project has produced a number of critical initiatives whose influence will be seen both vertically and laterally. The immediate benefits of ODR are the effectiveness of cost. Cost immediately reduces when we employ ODR. The convenience removes the need for travel and schedules. It is a customized process. It encourages mutually arriving at an agreement. It limits the biasness which arises during court proceedings. And the long-term benefits are that it provides parties with a chance to exercise their rights and follow paths that they would not have otherwise pursued owing to the time-consuming nature of litigation and the costly nature of litigation. ODR improves the legal health of the country. The European Union is an example of ODR being successfully streamlined across the mainstream in judiciary. And there is no reason why we should not do the same. I am hopeful when I speak of this alternate universe turning into a reality. But I will like to tell all of you that this cannot be done without the support of we, the youth of this country, and we, the young members of the Bar Association. After graduating from Cambridge, I had a well-paying job offering in the UK, in one of the top most law firms of the world. But I chose to return to India to serve my country and my people. And the way I find most effective to serve my country is by being part of litigation. There are moments when I feel that what if I had chosen the easier path of practicing in the UK? I would probably not have to struggle as much as I do in litigation. All junior members of the bar struggle in litigation initially. But struggles in our profession are directly proportionate to our aspirations, our dreams and our desires. When I sleep in the night, I realize that I am utilizing all my energies for my country and not for a foreign land. That satisfaction alone keeps me moving forward the next day when I wake up in the morning. We, the youth of this nation, have the potential of making this alternate universe into a reality with our hard work, grit, determination, and a coherent action plan, and a bit of magic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful talk. Now, Anvi Lodhe will take up the question and answer round.
Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, good evening.
Yeah.
Good
So
evening
the
to good evening to the entire team of TEDx ILS Law. Thank you for having me here, and you all are doing a wonderful job. Please, let's start.
Thank you for being here, sir. So the first question comes from Mr. Hardik Agarwal. He asks, how will India personally benefit through ADR as it does not cover criminal matters but only civil matters?
See, one must realize that ADR anywhere in the world does not cover criminal matters to begin with. So ADR is not intended to be directed towards criminal matters in the first place. It never was. If we will talk of criminal justice and criminal reform, then we'll need another lecture maybe someday in the future. But we must see the benefits. So I think a problem which I see in the youth of our country, and forget the youth of our country, people in general, which I have come to observe, is that we see what we don't get. We don't see what we are getting. So when I am talking of ADR, I am talking of what we are getting. I think my talk covers most of those points, so I'll not repeat it. But yes, if we all must realize that we are right now, our country is in crisis, our judiciary is in crisis. Now we have two options. One option is to sit and keep criticizing, which most people do. The second option is we try to clear this. So if your house is dirty, you will try to seek help of maybe a maid. If the maid is not coming, as was in the case of the pandemic, we all started cleaning our house ourselves. We all started cooking ourselves. Similarly, this is our country. This is our home. It's our mother. If our mother is unwell, we'll try our best to help her. If our house is not clean, we'll try to clean it. Similarly, ADR is the way forward when it comes to our judicial system. That is the only way forward, in my opinion.
Okay. So the next question comes from Mr. Nachiket. He is asking about the future of arbitration in India.
I think arbitration has a great scope in the years to come. We've been observing since the starting of arbitration that it was by and large focused towards high scale commercial disputes. But that is changing now. Perceptions are changing, attitudes are changing, and the government of India is providing a good policy eco space and ecosystem to enhance that. So I think one thing which we must see is that government of India has, and many state governments have made arbitration compulsory in contractual disputes involving the government in matters about a certain amount of money. So I think in Maharashtra it is about 25 lakh rupees and above. If there is a contract which the government has signed of Maharashtra, then it is compulsorily referred to arbitration. So this is a very good development. Similarly, we are encouraging the formation of arbitration centers. We are bringing world class people to guide us. We are adopting cutting edge technology. So I think in the years to come, arbitration is definitely, it is already a part of the mainstream. It will only rise. So now the next target is to not only see the high scale commercial disputes, but also normal disputes, day to day disputes. So I am very positive and hopeful about arbitration for our alternate universe that we are envisaging.
Okay, so the next question comes from Ms. Niharika. She asks, if a situation like the pandemic hits again, will ADR be successful in online mode as well?
I think ADR has moved to online mode to a great extent. So currently, I'm doing two arbitrations. One is in Mumbai before a retired Bombay High Court judge, and the other is in Delhi before a retired Delhi High Court judge. Although I am here in Delhi, I am very comfortably attending the arbitration in Mumbai, which is online. Similarly, I'm attending in Delhi. Although I'm here in Delhi, I sit in my office. I sit in this very space, and I attend the arbitration. So I think these are two case in points of arbitration becoming more ODR centric from now onward, despite the lockdown restrictions having eased. So it is not the question of if in a pandemic like situation. I think it is about the fact that it is now normal. It is normal to have arbitration these days online and exceptional to have them physically. And this is not only in case of arbitrations, but even national company law tribunals, for example, they are running online. NGT, National Green Tribunal, is running online. So we are adopting best practices, as I covered in my talk as well. In the UAE, UK, Canada, courts by default run online in exceptional situations for final hearing matters, or where there is a lot of papers to refer to. It is then when the courts move physically. So this is again, as I repeat, ADR is the future, and we are living in this future. We are rather, I would say, ADR is the present. It's not the future.
Okay, we have one more question. So, considering the challenges to foreign domestic awards, do you think arbitration will thrive?
I see no reason for it to not thrive. So we have had let's give an example of our neighboring country. So India and Pakistan shared the same arbitration act, Indian Arbitration Act of 1940. Pakistan still continues to have the 1940 Arbitration Act, while we have moved on, and now we are having amendments to the recent most act also. So we've had we have after 1940, we've had 1996, we've had 2015 amendment, we've again had an amendment recently. So I think ours is a country which is vibrant, which is thriving, which is having ideas. We are trying to overall make India into the hub of commercial arbitration across Asia, not just our domestic area or our domestic landscape. So yes, there are teething issues. Yes, there are issues, but we have a robust judiciary. So the Indian Supreme Court has time and again through interventions repeatedly brought in change which policymakers have factored in and amended the act suitably. So if there is an issue, it will be resolved. You are living in India. This is Naya India. This is Naya Bharat.
Okay, sir. The next question comes from Mr. Anuj. He asks, will implementing methods of ADR lead to privatization of some parts of the judiciary?
See, it is wrong to think that what is privatization now. Privatization is when you are working for gain, when you are working towards decentralizing governmental authority. Now, when we talk of the limbs of our government, it is the executive, judiciary, and legislature. So, can we say that arbitration happens in isolation of these three limbs? No. The legislature passes the act by which arbitrations are conducted. Number one. Number two, the who are the people who are at the helm of the affairs? They are by and large retired high court judges. Even if they are not retired high court judges, to a great extent nowadays private advocates also conduct arbitrations. Even then, after an award is passed in arbitration, the appeal or the appeal is the wrong word. Section 34 setting aside of arbitral award moves to high court. After the single judge, it goes to the division bench of high court. After that, it comes to Supreme Court. So it cannot ever be said that it is privatization. Rather, it is efficiency. It is streamlining an inefficient system into efficiency with due judicial oversight.
Okay, I think there's one last request actually from my side. Any advice that you would like to give to the future lawyers of this country?
I think I am also I'm a young member of the bar, so I am as much a future lawyer as all of you. It's just that I have a law degree. But I think all that I can say to all of you is that you will meet a lot of people who may be negative about arbitration, who may not be very positive about it. So to all of them, I say that the world is giving us an example of how arbitration in ADR in general is lucrative. It is good, and it is good for the country as well as the bar. Apart from this, moving forward from this topic of ADR and arbitration. All I can say is I think I can just maybe copy Steve Jobs and say that stay hungry, stay foolish, keep the hunger alive, and I think you'll go places. More than that, I myself need wisdom to impart wisdom, but I am be following that, and I think it has been doing me well so far.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me here. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
your team. Thank you, Navya Maheshwari. Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you, Anmol. Thank you, Avni. Thank you, all of you. You all are doing a wonderful job. And I think team TEDx ILS Law is definitely setting benchmarks for others in India to follow.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. That means a lot coming from you. And on behalf of TEDxILS Law, we would like to extend a heartfelt gratitude to you for taking out your time and sharing your views on the topic. I am sure that the audience has loved hearing your talk and have gathered some understanding and direction from it. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for being here.
I would like to take this opportunity to extend a thank you to all the speakers who took out their time to share their unique ideas and also engage with the audience today. We are positive that each person in the audience will go back home with a fresh frame of mind and will contemplate on the ideas discussed today. Thank you all for being patient with us. We might be ending the session today, but tomorrow we have yet another set of totally unique ideas waiting to be discussed. The session will begin sharp at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Hope to see you all and engage in more lively discussions. Thank you.